Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a PayPal link below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Mark, Ranty, Anthony, another Mark, who's this? James, Earth Flattener, Dawn Treader, and Alan. How are you all doing?
So, Tony, carrying on, repeat the problem in a succinct sentence for me.
When you view the Metabunk curve calculator and you get the refracted hidden value, whatever value that comes up at, when you scroll down and you have that side profile, where everybody applies the refracted hidden value against the full height of the target. But when you put the full height of the target in on the orthographic view, which is what everybody does, then it kind of there or thereabouts gets within the ballpark figure for refraction. But if you reduce the height of the thing that you're looking at, in this case, 1,000-foot mountain, and reduce it down to its apparent size, and then view it from the side, you will see that in almost every case, above 20 miles, that thing that you're looking at that's big enough to see just about because it's tiny on the horizon will fall below the amount of that line that is the hidden value in almost all cases, and it destroys the ball Earth model. Now, Dawn, would you mind asking me the question that you just asked me while we were offline? He said, are you saying that you...
Do you believe that that's been excluded from the calculator to hide flat Earth?
No, Dawn put it better. Dawn, do you remember how you worded it?
Yeah, so you think he's left it out on purpose to make it easier to prove the globe, harder to prove flat Earth?
Correct. He's deliberately left it out because he knows that if he puts the reduced height in because of perspective, it's never ever going to match any of the observations that we actually do get. Now, it's not even like a couple of smudges or a couple of pixels. It's the whole horizon will be different. None of it will match. So we can't put it in.
You could prove this if you add your own one.
Yeah, but it's not us that's telling us how to do it's your model.
Right.
Metabunk is a tool made by a baller to prove the ball Earth because it's a curve calculator.
Well, it's made by a video game developer that likes
Tony.
to debunk things.
Sure,
And
but
yet you use it.
It's a video game debunker, a video game programmer guy that claims that we live on a sphere, and he's become a self-appointed authority on ball earthiness. That comes with a responsibility to correctly represent the maths that he's applying, and he hasn't got what he's done is he's not got the maths wrong. He's got the maths correct, but he's left out the part that says objects in the distance appear to be smaller than they are in real world, which tells us, people like us, the flat earthers that want to challenge it, that things need to be reduced.
Even with that statement, though, it's not going to help you calculate, is it, the angle reduction?
Well, that's our problem, though, isn't it? If we don't know the maths for perspective, then that's our problem.
Do you think that the flat earthers need to be told that things get smaller the further away they get?
No, we know
we can figure it out on
They
our
do
own.
need to be told. It's not the flat earthers, it's the globe earthers. I've said this about 5 times to you in the last show, Dawn. The people who have used this calculation and compared it to photography have got it wrong because they haven't applied the angular size reduction to the target that they are comparing. The maths that spits out a value for how much is hidden should actually be there. Because you don't take an angle, you take a single line. So yes, as I said a couple of days ago, Mick West could weasel his way out of this and say, well, my calculator's correct. It doesn't actually apply any hidden values to anything target-wise. There's no targets in there. And you'd be correct, Mick West. You can say that. But that just means that everybody who's ever applied it to a photograph and hasn't accounted for an angular size reduction, which is all of them, they've all got it well wrong. Completely.
Not well wrong.
Tony.
No,
Yeah,
massive
totally
dawn.
and utterly wrong, Dawn. They haven't applied the secondary function of perspective to a calculator that does not account for viewing functionality, i.e. is not comparable to photographs.
The effect is massive, Dawn, because it shrinks the object down so far and
Tony.
so small, it drops behind the curve element.
Tony, I've just listened to your example. I actually wrote it down. You do realise that the mountain doesn't actually change size.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. It's the apparent size. It's angular size. And if you drew two lines,
you can't.
one to the top of the target and one to the bottom of the target, you could figure out how big it appears in your field of view, i.e. its angular size. Unfortunately, though, Alan, you only draw one line to the target, like we're looking down some sort of bloody straw or something.
Can I get an answer from Tony, please?
Sure. What's the question?
You do realise that the mountain doesn't actually change size in real life.
Yeah, it does change size. I'll say it again because I don't care what Anthony's reply is. My reply is sufficient. It does change size. The apparent size reduces. That's what we see in photographs. So yes, it does change size. No, its actual height doesn't shrink, you pedantic idiot. But its actual size that you see in the picture does reduce. And that's called apparent size. A reduction you don't account for.
And you do realise that light bounces off a real object and that is fixed before you see or determine the angular size.
That's a
Yeah,
straw
an
man.
angle. You're not drawing two lines, you're drawing one. You're not counting for angles, so are you? You draw one line in a side elevation. That doesn't give you any angles now, does it? So why
The
are
light
you
has
now
to hit
talking
your eye
about...
before you can
Why are
determine
you
it.
now bringing up angles when your calculations don't do angles, do they?
Yeah, you can't have it both ways.
Right.
I think I may be able to help, and it might take, just takes 2 minutes for me to present what I got to, and then I'll just leave it there.
No, you're good, man. Feel free.
Okay, can I be presented? And I'll show you what I have here.
You might need turning up a little bit, though. He's a bit quiet.
Okay, that
I
might
have
be
done.
me.
You're at full. Is it James speaking?
Yeah.
Yeah, you go ahead when you're presenting. Just let me know and I'll stick you up.
Okay, okay, I just do it like the old-fashioned way here. Okay, we'll get this one here going. And here we have different views of what they call the angle of elevation. You know, I took forestry when I was younger, and one of the things they taught us was how to measure distant objects. If you know the distance from the base of your object to the top of it, you can calculate the tangent of that angle, do some simple math, and get the height of the target object. If you back away, we'll go from here. We'll take one of these examples, like the Eiffel Tower, say this one. Sorry about that. Where'd it go? If you measure the angle, the tangent of your angle of elevation from the base or your direct view of the object target, you get the height. If you back up the viewer here, say twice as far, the angle of elevation decreases. This vertical height will decrease from the viewer's vantage point. It will shrink visually as the person backs away from. So the angle of elevation is what is really bringing the vertical height of the target object down. As you move farther away from the base of the target, your viewing angle of it decreases. You don't have to look as high to see it.
Where does
That
the
is
Earth's hump fit into that diagram?
Sorry, do you want to go
Because its
first, Mark?
angular size reduces. Because
Well,
It's
it's
scaled
actual
down because it's
visual
more far
size.
away.
Your apparent size to you, the viewer, goes down.
Which
The
is what
angle
Nathan's
you
answer.
have to, yeah, it's basically, instead of just looking at the angle from the side view, you're actually with this, and they fake it here too. Look, they'll show you somewhere they back up the viewer, but they're not shrinking the target. You know,
Yeah. That's the point.
James.
cheating. It's just more cheating, basically.
So that means James agrees and understands the point. You agree with us then, James, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Can I just point out one thing? Sorry,
look
just to
at
add
here.
to...
Here they're showing in this tree here. Okay, well, let me back up one. Whoops, where'd it go? I just overclicked. Sorry about that. Right here. So in this one here, they have one angle at 32 degrees at a certain vertical height here. But as you back up to 19 degrees, well, that tree should be lowering its visual height from the B point here,
Yes.
from the viewer's
And
perspective.
Now, Alan, do you realize that that tree, when it's at the 32 degrees angle, is bigger than the tree that it would be when it's at 19?
It has to shrink.
The tree has to go smaller.
Has to come down visually to the observer, camera, whatever it is, even the theodolite. And they don't measure curve, they measure slope or grade.
And just addressing Dawn in chat, in the side chat, it doesn't affect the calc. You're right, it doesn't affect the calc. It affects how the calculation is applied. Because when you apply the height, the refracted hidden, you have to reduce the height of the target because of perspective. So the calcs are correct. It's correct. What you're saying is correct. It doesn't change the calcs. No, it changes how the ballers apply it to targets in distance.
They're neglecting that the farther you go from your target, the more it shrinks to your visual perception.
Do you know what, mate? You're an absolute star, because you've probably explained it better than what I have. And if you still don't get it, even with this, then obviously there's an issue.
Yeah, in every one of these examples, they cheat, because no matter what, they keep the target at the same size physically, which is a cheat.
So are you just worried about the diagram?
And there's another element.
No, I'm worried about reality. As you move away from something, a church steeple, it'll get smaller, closer to the horizon.
Everyone knows that.
Not only that.
Yeah, everyone knows that, but nobody applies it when it comes to the perspective calc.
There's another element that is critical.
But if you look at this angle of elevation debate, it's important. It'll really get you, maybe out of the loop. I gotta go. I'll drop by later. I hope this helps.
It does, man. It helps a lot.
Enjoy it.
Anthony, can I inject something, please?
Go ahead, Owen.
That is well, besides this, besides the angular size reducing as you back off, there is also on a ball a bulge, a growing bulge that is exactly midway to the from the observer to the actually observed thing, and that bulge also has an angular size because it has a literal size if you calculate it out.
I think that's what Alan is missing.
And the well, the bulge is always halfway of the observer in relation to the observed object, and the angular size should always be pretty much twice as large. And the further away an object is, the larger this bulge becomes, while simultaneously the object that is observed in the distance becomes small due to the perspective effect. So the further away, the larger the bulge becomes in relation to the observed object, and simultaneously, the smaller the object becomes observed in the distance.
But in addition, the thing in the distance is beginning to drop behind the curve as well.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's the bulge is in the way, and the further away it is, the bigger the bulge becomes, and the smaller the object in the distance becomes. So at a certain point,
the object
nothing
should
should be visible. Nothing.
That's right. That's why I said anything above 25 or so, 20, 25 miles, it's never ever going to match the curve calcs, and that's the reason why he can't change it, won't change it, and has to argue against it, and sends out his minions like the Rumpus and Ruhif and M. Scott Veach to argue it, and then you've got people like Dawn and Alan that think that it's right because it makes sense. But the reality is things do get smaller as they get further away from us, and that's not considered in the maths. Yeah, okay, maybe it doesn't need to, but it does when you apply that hidden value.
Yeah, as I said earlier, you've got two lines that need to be drawn between observer and target in order to calculate an angle. And everything James was just showing us has two lines drawn. Now, in their world, the bottom line that they're drawing on that triangle is a curved surface. It doesn't change the fact that you still need to take two measurements to get something's angular size, but they're drawing a single line between target and observer and holding it inside profile. So essentially, that's the key. That's how they've ignored perspective. And they've got to ignore it because that's where they've engineered in a curve that doesn't exist. With the inverse square law of perspective applied, they can just exclude it and engineer in the maths for curvature using a presuppositional value of r. This is how everyone's been deceived with these maths. This is the how.
I have a question about that, that what James just explained. They were showing the angle angle was getting smaller as you move back. It seemed like, but it doesn't seem like it would ever reach 0. So it's almost like even
Hello,
though the
P.
object
Can you
would
say
get
hello?
smaller.
Can you say hello, P? P, can you say hello?
Fake P. It's a fake one.
Is it a fake P?
Yeah. I recognize the pattern of him turning his head and everything. It's a fake video.
Maybe.
You guys?
No, you go ahead, Lewis. Sorry, repeat your question.
No, not Lewis. But yeah, so like I was saying, the angular size, I was noticing it got smaller as you move back. But I don't know if you've seen like Zeno's paradox or any other sort of reduction. It seems like that reduction never reaches 0. So I don't understand why that would it would assume that it would disappear behind something, or it would disappear where you can never see it. Seems like it just gets infinitely smaller.
Well, let me answer that by asking you
Thanks for the
this:
super chat.
Were you in the discussion 2 years ago when everybody was saying that boats couldn't be brought back from behind the horizon, and then we all went out with P900s and brought back boats back from behind the horizon?
Yeah, I'm sure. I wasn't there for that discussion, but I have seen those, and I've seen that argument with the boats. And I'm not really a big fan of it because there's.
Well, as the angle gets smaller and smaller because the thing's getting further and further away, eventually you lose sight of it because it's that small that you just your eyes can't resolve it anymore because it's too small.
The telescope can, or a long enough binoculars.
Yeah.
Surely.
That's my point. Because the angle gets very close to 0, or gets closer to 0, there comes a point when your eye can no longer resolve it.
But I'm saying a camera or a telescope or binoculars surely could.
Yeah, so it's relative to the angle. It's relative.
Yeah, the word you're looking for, Anthony, is vanishing point.
Yeah, vanishing point.
Right, something we all understand and were taught back in school. We all get that there's a vanishing point, a point beyond which you cannot see because stuff is too small to see, and no amount of camera zoom will bring stuff back from beyond that vanishing point. Now, that vanishing point we have looked at in detail. It actually has a title. The optical term for it is circle of confusion. And at that midpoint, that intersection, that point where the two lines coming from the top of your image that you see and the bottom converge, you will get, if you can see it, if it's not obscured by waves, put that disclaimer in straight away, you get obstruction. And things that are behind it and smaller than the angular size that you can resolve at that distance will be obscured by the circle of confusion, aka the vanishing point, aka the point of convergence. It's just as simple as that.
Slant. You can also interpret it as a slant.
Exactly.
Yeah. The optical slant, which is, for the record, Arwen, you said that I always refer to things when I don't agree with you. Well, I'm now doing the opposite. I'm supporting you when you say the optical slant, because I agree with Arwen on this. The optical slant is the thing. It's the way that things always go up towards the horizon, which is basically the level with our eyes.
How dare you?
I know.
What is the world coming to when you agree with me?
At the risk of inviting you to, let's try and get Nathan to talk with Dawn in a way that doesn't involve Nathan getting too crazy. Let's see if we can get Dawn to understand that things go further into the distance, but that's not being applied when it comes to applying the hidden value against stuff. Now, I'm probably not.
Tired, but I've just been thinking about it while you guys talking. I guess I kind of see Owen's point. If there's a big hump of water and something is further away, it gets smaller. But I don't agree that needs to be on the calculator.
But it's shown on the calculator as a bulge, as a hump. The drop value.
It's just the side view that you don't like how it's shown, or
no? It's the side view not telling you that we need to shrink objects over distance.
Right, but it's just a diagram, isn't it? If they wanted to shrink it, it might be too small in the scale.
Exactly.
Yeah, then suddenly it doesn't work anymore. The measurements don't actually fit the observations anymore.
Well, the globe's argument
because it's not a globe.
The calc's not focusing on the target. It's
that's the point.
Something else.
Yeah, I know, and that's the point what we're making. We're saying that.
I've heard Jem make the argument that it's not just the target that's reducing in angular size; it's everything at that distance.
Yeah.
No.
The further away, the smaller it gets. Correct.
No, what he's saying is that if you're going to reduce down the target, like proportionate to its distance, then you've also got to reduce down. You've got to scale down the effect of the refracted hidden value. You know, the line that M. Scott Beach adds.
This is why Mick wants you to do the equations.
Yeah, but it's not our maths. It's his model thing.
I know,
It's
but
not
he's
for us to
testing
do that.
You've got the problem with it, so he's saying, okay, do this for me, and maybe we can change it.
No,
He's not
no,
saying
no,
that.
no. Sorry, I've got to address that. My assertion to him was that the R value the entire calculation is based on is incorrect. What we are addressing here is 3 or 4 steps down the begging the question fallacy. You've already assumed it's a sphere with the calculation, you've got an R value. That's my objection. Prove the R value.
The calculator's not assuming R.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
It's assuming that the measurements of R were correct.
He admitted it.
Right, it's assuming it.
Yeah, it's
He admitted
assuming
it
that
as
the
well.
measurements that were done are correct.
Measurements.
No, Don, he admitted it was an assumption.
The assumption of R was, what do you say, 1,000 years ago?
No,
The
was
assumption-
admitted.
They measured it?
The assumption of R was admitted. He admitted it.
No, he said the calc assumes that
He
R is
said,
correct.
no, what he said was it was
Correct.
based on the standard model, and the standard model has no scientific evidence to
Yeah,
back
what he
the
meant was,
assertion.
it's been measured, so we're assuming the measurements are correct
Sorry,
for the
you've
calculator.
measured a sphere, you've measured that it has a radius, have you, Dawn?
I haven't, no.
Right, will you show me who has measured a radius of a sphere? You show me that.
It's centuries of
Right,
clever
I'm gonna-
people
Right.
with
That's so long ago you don't remember it.
telescopes.
Hang on a sec.
What do
hang
you
on.
want me to show you?
Hang
A
on.
black
Hang
and white
on.
picture of an astronomer
Wait.
on a boat?
Dawn, hang on a sec. We've gone on a tangent there. What Nathan said is that he did ask Mick this question, and we did. However, there were 3 questions that we asked him in that hangout. Let's stick on this question. Now, we didn't get closure on the point from what's his face, troll account. We didn't get closure on this 3rd point
Is
because
that
we
the
ran
real
out of
troll
time.
account?
Because we ran out of time and we didn't get closure on it. But the reality is that at that time we were literally quite new to it and we were trying to work out what the terminology is. And now we've refined our arguments a lot better. Even Dawn understands that we have a point. So at that point, if you accept and we see that you accept that we've got a point, then at least we're now able to articulate ourselves better. But the point is, it relies on the ballers to apply the hidden value against the actual target height. But that's wrong. Every baller applies it against the actual target height, and that's incorrect because all of us accept that things appear to get smaller over distance. But the only way that it could be correctly applied on that orthographic drawing underneath is if you showed a scaled drawing, but then reduced the height of the target and then shown us where that line applies to
I
it.
think this might
That's
be a
right.
conflict of
First
interest.
apply the angular sizes, then determine
Rather than either
how
side
much
being
they
totally
actually
wrong.
drop.
I think it might be a conflict of interest. You guys want something.
Yeah,
they
it is a
say it's
conflict
not
of interest.
necessary.
Your interest in the globe.
No,
They
it's
say
not.
it's not necessary, and I say make your own calculator if that's what you want.
Well, the thing is, if we make our own calculator, then it'll just be dismissed.
Yeah,
What we want the
you're not going to
intellectual.
use it because it doesn't prove your globe. Because
Okay,
it doesn't
well-
work out because it actually works.
My advice is to keep negotiating with Mick West then.
I'll tell you what we'll do. We will
Negotiate
do our
with
own
religious
calculator.
fanatics? Really?
The thing
Negotiate
is,
for
the thing is,
what?
Mick is lying by omission. It is true to say that the calcs haven't got anything wrong with them. The calcs are correct if we live on a
Right.
ball. But the problem is,
It's kind of hypocritical, or it's kind of
No.
ironic to what you just said before.
no. Listen, it's when they get applied to the target that we're looking at is the problem, which isn't addressed by metabolic.
Okay, so it's not Mick's problem, it's Glober's problem when they're just doing a target.
Yes, exactly. So when these idiots, you globe heads who've used this maths and compared it to photographs, even Dawn gets it. You are the ones that have got it wrong. Now you can go and blame Mick West if you choose, and he'll just weasel his way out of it and say, well, I'm not accounting for any targets in my maths, that's your problem. And it is your problem. Every last one of you that have used this calculator have a very big problem. That problem being that you haven't accounted for an angular size reduction at distance. Big problem if you're a globe head.
So Globers and Flat Earthers, from now on, your opinion is we need to all do the perspective math when
No,
we're applying
not
it
an
to a
opinion,
target.
it's a fact
Correct.
of life, Dawn. Unless you're a perspective denier, we do account for perspective every time we open our eyes or take a picture of anything. But it's the people who've compared a photograph to maths
Okay.
that aren't doing
how
viewing
much-
functions that have got it wrong because they
How much
needed
does
to.
it get wrong by in a percentage?
The amount
You know,
that
the maximum?
perspective reduces things
About
in the
90%.
distance by size.
And what's the smallest it can be wrong most of the time?
It is massively wrong. massively, and every person who's ever applied it needs to make a retraction because they've got it wrong.
I was doing some research just now. There's a guy, Al Biruni. I think he did it a couple hundred years ago, and he got it wrong by 1% due to refraction. But other than that, his calculations using trigonometry and an astrolabe, the size of a mountain, he got within 1% of what we perceive it to be now. And then I also heard a simple way of using a map to calculate the radius.
Tell us how he did it. How did he do it? Tell us all about it.
The Alberuni? Okay, well, there's 3 steps. It says, I have it here. I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Troll.
All right, so yeah, can y'all see my screen?
And can I just address Alan B's request in chat? He's saying, Tony, can you unblock Ruhif? And my answer is no, because Ruhif is one of the people that is pushing the lies as truth. He's pushing the actual height is where the hidden should be applied to. That's wrong. I don't believe that Ruhif's not worked this out, because if is able to accept that we've got a point, and even if he doesn't know whether we're right or not, or even if he accepts that the baller explanation is fair and he accepts it, at least he realizes that there is an issue. And Ruhif isn't doing that. Ruhif is just dismissing what we're saying completely because it's wrong.
Yeah,
However,
I could just say you're wrong. It's not necessary, but I thought I'd try to understand your point.
but are you diluting your position now by saying that you only said that to appease us?
No, I'm diluting my position because I didn't want to just fully agree with people when I don't understand everything about it.
No, but you do understand that objects get smaller in over distance, right?
Yes.
So when you put in that view, when you're applying the hidden value, you have to reduce the target that you're looking at because of perspective. You have to make it smaller because things do get smaller.
Yeah, but the calc is not target. So I've just admitted, yeah. So when Globers adjust applying it to the target, they're ignoring the perspective.
Yeah, but
you're saying they're in the wrong. The calculator's not wrong. They're in the wrong because they didn't apply it.
The calculator is not for measuring curvature in actual photographs and film footage. Simply that.
So Owen's saying that they're wrong for even using it at all. Like,
no, purely theoretical tool. It should not be applied to actual active photography or film.
He's right. Arwin's right. It's a theoretical
Okay, so if that's true, why are you guys going on about it for days and days?
Because you do. Because you do use it for that.
Because people like you have been deceived, and people like Ruhif and Rumpus use it to push the narrative we live on a ball.
Well, I do have that pulled up, the Alberini guy. It's got a lot of trigonometry in it.
Let me jump in here just real quick, because I brought this up on Morgile's show the other day when I was on. We watched this video and talked through what was happening. And right from the get-go, if you just watch the video, right from the get-go, he's presupposing he's measuring the size of the Earth, which is a circle. Now, he doesn't know how big the circle is, so he does his astrolabe, gets the height of the mountain, goes up to the top of the mountain, and he goes out and he shoots the dip. He shoots the drop, right? The problem is he doesn't account for whether or not he's actually measuring the apparent horizon or the real horizon, because he's shooting out to the horizon.
Yeah, that's okay. That's one of the
points
that we're going to attack Rumpus on.
Yeah, I just want to add to that he actually based his original presupposition on Eratosthenes. So he's just basing the presuppositional value on R on sticks and shadows and just accepting that as fact before he does a thing.
And if you watch...
Yeah, go ahead.
If you watch the rest of the video, as soon as he gets the height of the mountain and gets out to the horizon, it says something very interesting. It says, now, he imagined the triangle. He imagined the triangle to extend to the center of the Earth.
Wow.
So
I mean, so when we watch these BBC presentations and we don't critically think about what they're telling us, he imagines, and he doesn't take into account whether or not he's actually measuring the true horizon or the apparent horizon. It's all right there for you to see it. It's right there in front of you.
It's science in imagination, man.
Thanks for that plain truth. So basically, it's a big fat sack of presupposition, just like all of them.
Well,
Right. Nathan, I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna just try it with Dawn one last time.
Dawn gets it. I think he does.
I think he does get it, but maybe if Dawn's borderline, maybe if
he's not allowed to be borderline. Have you never learned? They never concede a thing.
I can say
ever.
what I want.
Right,
I've got
look.
Timmy in my DMs if you want to hear his opinion.
No,
on
we
it.
don't want to hit him. Look,
Okay.
Dawn.
I knew you'd say that. I just thought I'd offer.
Dawn, you know that in real world, forget about the diagram for a minute, but real world, you accept that targets appear to get smaller over distance.
Of course.
They need to be the further away it gets, the triangle that you put in for your mountain that you're looking at has to also shrink if you're going to do it on this view, because that's the side profile of a perspective drawing if you're going to do it that way. But because nobody ever does, they all put the mountain in up here, the full size. But the further away from the observer it gets, the smaller it gets. So it has to be reduced according to the rules of perspective. Now, if you see that, and then you realize that the direct effect of it is that when you put the refracted hidden value against the height of the thing that you're looking at, it has to be the smaller height of the distance because it's smaller. And in almost all observations of about 20-25 miles,
it's smaller though. It's the same size.
It's not, Alan. That's the point.
No.
Alan, how can you say that?
It just
you know
appears
the objects. You know
Yes,
the
it appears
objects shrink over
smaller.
distance.
It's apparent size. That's what we look at. That's how we see. We encounter perspective when we look at things. Yeah? Just a perspective denier, Alan. It's pathetic.
Things always, no matter the distance, get smaller due to perspective. But where you see them in your field of vision does change over distance. So if things...
What do you mean where you see them in your field?
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you let me explain it, I'll tell you, because this is another way to approach this land. Everyone has a field of view. And in that field of view, anything you see that is, for example, really tall and wide enough can be seen into extreme distances. Just the angular size, its apparent size just becomes smaller. That always applies. But the position of where you see it at a certain point no longer moves toward the horizon, towards that middle of your view, because of perspective, because at a certain point things change the way they look. They get crammed into that vanishing zone, into that circle of confusion, and the optical slant occurs at that position. And things from there on are only visible in a straight line of sight until vision is completely obscured by air or whatever is going to be in front of it.
Yeah, like waves or whatever we have. Unfortunately, this is going to be a slightly shorter show as I started quite late today. So first and foremost, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing the show. If you hated the show, you know exactly what to do. But if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!